The neon lights of the casino flickered like fireflies against the humid Belizean night. Inside, the air throbbed with the hum of slot machines and the occasional roar of victory. The scent of perfume and desperation wove together in an intoxicating mix. Then came the sound of a crash. A tower of poker chips tumbled across the table, bouncing and rolling in every direction. "Are you serious?" A woman's exasperated voice cut through the noise. Opposite her, a man in a tailored navy blue suit stood rigidly, his jaw clenched. "If you hadn't been so careless, maybe you wouldn't have knocked over my chips." "Excuse me?" Her brown eyes flashed in the dim casino lighting as she placed a hand on her hip. "You're the one who elbowed me. I was trying to cash out." The dealer watched, amused, as the two squared off. "Maybe you should watch where you're standing," the man muttered, adjusting his sleeves. "Maybe you should—" A sharp whistle interrupted their spat. "Hey, lovebirds, either play or get out of the way." The pit boss chuckled, motioning for them to move along. They glared at each other for a long second before scoffing in unison and turning away in opposite directions. Carol Harris was used to men like him, cocky, arrogant, and probably drowning in inherited wealth. She had no patience for it. Her trip to Belize was supposed to be a breath of fresh air, a reset. After the disaster of her last relationship, she needed an escape, something different from the predictable chaos of New York. Belize had been a last-minute choice, an exotic destination that promised adventure, warm beaches, and no romantic entanglements. Josiah Holmes had come to Belize for a completely different reason. Unlike Carol, he wasn't here for a break. He was here on business. The casino was just a pit stop, a way to burn off some stress before an important meeting the next day. He didn't believe in luck, only in strategy and control, which was why he despised distractions, especially ones wrapped in striking brown eyes and a feisty attitude. Neither of them expected to see each other again. Fate had other plans. The next evening, the cool ocean breeze whispered through the streets of Belize City. Carol wandered into a high-end restaurant, eager to treat herself to a good meal. As she scanned the menu, a familiar voice made her spine stiffen. "You again?" She looked up and found Josiah standing at the host's podium, just as surprised to see her. He sighed, running a hand through his neatly styled hair. "Are you following me?" she asked, narrowing her eyes. He let out a humorless chuckle. "Hardly. But since we're here, might as well get through dinner without arguing, right?" She hesitated before finally nodding. "Fine, but don't think this means I like you." "Likewise." They ended up seated at the same table, exchanging quips and jabs over seafood and wine. Neither would admit it, but the conversation had a pull. Like an undercurrent, neither could resist. But their night took an unexpected turn when a loud commotion broke out at the entrance of the restaurant. A man stormed in, his face twisted in anger. "Where is she?" he bellowed. Carol froze. Josiah, sensing the tension in her posture, leaned closer. "You know him?" She swallowed hard, her fingers tightening around her glass. "I thought I left my past behind in New York. Looks like it followed me." Josiah glanced at the stranger, then back at Carol, his expression unreadable. "Well, that makes two of us." She turned to him, confusion flashing in her eyes. "What do you mean?" Before he could answer, the man at the entrance spotted Carol and marched toward their table. "Looks like dinner just got interesting," Josiah muttered, rolling his sleeves up. The night had just begun, and the stakes had never been higher. Carol held her breath for a minute as the man came closer. His eyes locked on her with a dangerous intensity. "Carol, we need to talk. Now," he growled. Josiah sat up in his seat, his expression calm but his muscles tense. "I don't think she's interested." The man shot him a dark glare before focusing back on Carol. "This isn't your business, buddy." Carol finally found her voice. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" Ethan scoffed. "You disappeared, Carol. You think you can just run off without a word?" Josiah's eyes flicked between them, his curiosity piqued. "Seems like she had a good reason." Ethan took a menacing step closer. "Stay out of this." Carol's pulse pounded. She had left Ethan behind for a reason. He was controlling, manipulative, and the last thing she needed in her life. But seeing him here in Belize sent a chill down her spine. Josiah pushed back his chair and stood up, his gaze locked onto Ethan's. "You should leave, now." Ethan clenched his jaw, sizing up Josiah before smirking. "You don't know what you're getting yourself into." Josiah returned the smirk, but his voice was deadly serious. "Neither do you." Carol exhaled shakily, her heart pounding in her chest. She had no idea how Ethan found her, but one thing was clear. This trip had just taken a turn she never expected. Ethan's smirk faded as his eyes darkened. "You think you're some kind of hero? You don't know what Carol and I had. She belongs with me." Carol stepped forward, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I don't belong to anyone, Ethan. Least of all you." Ethan's expression flickered with something unreadable. Rage, hurt, or maybe just bruised pride. "You'll regret this, Carol. You always do." Josiah took a step closer. "That sounds like a threat?" Ethan chuckled, low and bitter. "Call it a promise." With that, he turned on his heel and stormed out of the restaurant, leaving a tense silence in his wake. Carol exhaled shakily, looking up at Josiah. "Thank you." He nodded, watching the door. "Something tells me he's not done." She swallowed hard. Neither of them knew just how right he was. That night, as Carol returned to her hotel, a shadow moved in the alley nearby. The warm air was thick with humidity, but a chill ran down her spine. She quickened her pace, but before she could reach the entrance, a strong hand clamped over her mouth, yanking her into the darkness. Her muffled scream was swallowed by the night as she struggled, her heart pounding. Meanwhile, Josiah was in his suite, pouring himself a drink when his phone buzzed. A blocked number. He hesitated before answering. A distorted voice came through the line. "Stay out of this, Holmes, or she disappears for good." Josiah's grip tightened around the glass, his expression hardening. "Who the hell are you?" The line went dead. His heart hammered as he grabbed his keys and bolted for the door. He had a bad feeling, one that told him he might already be too late. Carol's captor dragged her through a maze of narrow alleyways, his grip bruising her arm. She thrashed, kicking wildly, but the man was strong, his pace relentless. They emerged near the docks, where a sleek black SUV idled. The back door swung open, and Ethan stepped out, his face eerily calm. "I told you, Carol, you can't run from me." She struggled harder, panic surging through her. "Let me go, Ethan! This is insane!" Ethan sighed, shaking his head. "You never understood, did you? You belonged to me." Before he could force her into the vehicle, a sharp whistle cut through the night. "Let her go." Ethan turned just in time to see Josiah step out of the shadows, a gun in hand, his face set like stone. "You're making a mistake, Holmes," Ethan sneered. "Walk away while you still can." Josiah cocked the gun. "Try me." The night was about to erupt in chaos. Ethan's sneer vanished as Josiah stepped forward, his grip on the gun steady. "You've got one chance to walk away." Ethan laughed, but there was uncertainty in his eyes. "You don't have the guts." Carol, still struggling in the grip of Ethan's lackey, seized the moment. She stomped down hard on his foot and elbowed him in the ribs. The man grunted in pain, loosening his grip just enough for her to break free. Josiah acted fast. He fired a warning shot into the air. The loud bang echoed against the water, making Ethan flinch. "Next shot won't miss," Josiah warned. Ethan scowled but lifted his hands in surrender. "You'll regret this, both of you." Josiah stepped between him and Carol. "Not if you leave now." Ethan glared at them before motioning to his goon. "Let's go." As the black SUV peeled away into the darkness, Carol let out a shaky breath. She turned to Josiah, her eyes glistening. "You came for me." He holstered his gun and cupped her face gently. "Of course I did. I wasn't going to let him take you." Carol exhaled, her voice barely above a whisper. "Josiah, He kissed her, slow and deep, as the Belizean night wrapped around them. When they finally broke apart, she rested her forehead against his. "I think I love you." Josiah smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Good, because I know I love you." 2 days later, hand in hand, they boarded a flight back to the States. They had arrived in Belize as strangers, two people running from their pasts, but now they were leaving as something else entirely. Two souls forever changed by love, danger, and the promise of a new beginning. Love has the power to heal and transform, but only when we face our past and embrace change. True strength comes not from running away, but from standing up, fighting for our happiness, and allowing ourselves to trust again. This is the conclusion of Hight, Stakes in Belize, a Caribbean romance story. If you enjoyed my story, give it a thumbs up. Comment so that I may know your thoughts, and share it with your friends. Subscribe to enjoy more Caribbean romance stories. Let the rhythm of the waves and the allure of tropical nights sweep you away. Explore more enchanting Caribbean romance stories that will leave you longing for sunsets and second chance. This is Irene Pandy Slusher saying don't stress, but as we say in Belize, go slow